What do you call an exceptionally hairy alien?
Alien?
An extraterrestrial. Stan Fustman, 101 jokes that are out of this world, 2048. The Turtle and the Exile. When he was 7, Leo found himself locked inside the janitor's closet at school. The closet was set back in the maintenance area by one of those ancient gas furnaces that stank of burned oil and clanged like a marching band. So it took nearly an hour for anyone to hear little Leo screaming and pounding on the door. There was no light in the closet. There was no light in the closet, only the dead bulb that the janitor never bothered to change. And Leo was sure the space was crawling with spiders and roaches, which made him itch and squirm. Even with a hit from his inhaler, he struggled to breathe as he kicked and cursed the 3 boys that had locked him in there. There had been no cause other than Leo was short and shy and an easy target. The 3 boys had been horsing around. The very next day, Gareth Fender was suspended for 3 days for fighting, though admittedly it hadn't really been much of a fight. Leo's brother cornered the kid who had orchestrated the prank in the hallway, pulled his shirt over his head, and punched him once in the gut, doubling him over and turning him into a crumpled heap on the floor. Then Gareth bent down and whispered that if he or his friends ever messed with his little brother again, he would make the kid choke down his own teeth. Leo wasn't picked on for the rest of the year. But he never forgot about the closet or how it made him feel. It wasn't claustrophobia exactly. He could spend hours in a tent or a cubbyhole, provided he had crawled in there himself, so long as he was certain he could get out whenever he wanted. It was knowing that made the difference. Leo wasn't afraid of tight spaces. He was afraid of being trapped. It was probably the biggest reason he hated space travel, because no matter how vast and open it seemed, all it had ever done for Leo was close him in, confine him, force him to live on a ship with its tunneled corridors and windowless compartments. It couldn't compare to the tree-studded fields or stretches of sand back on Earth. Even in the places where you could look out, all you could often see was emptiness, like a solid thing, like a dark wall closing in, taking your breath away. Leo screamed until his throat was raw. He screamed for his brother to get him out, even though he knew his brother was medicine. He knew his brother was long gone, and when his voice grew hoarse, he just whispered his brother's name. Gareth, what did you do? Leo had always been the sly one, the jokester, good with the card tricks, sleight of hand, but Gareth had fooled him this time. Trust me, he'd said, and Leo had fallen for it. At least this way, I'll know you got out. Except Leo wasn't out of anything. He was trapped, and now he was alone. He could feel the thrum of the ship's engines all around him. He couldn't tell how fast they were going, but he knew they hadn't engaged their FTL drive. He could tell when a ship jumped, time seemed to slow down. Or maybe it actually did slow down. Leo had never understood the physics, no matter how many lectures his father gave. Every part of your body felt like it was stretching, the particles pulling away from each other as if you were literally split into a trillion pieces, fragmenting in every direction. And then there was the blinding pain right behind your ears and the overwhelming urge to vomit that first-timers and some 20th-timers never managed to suppress. Only a split second of torture before everything evened itself out for the duration, at least until you came back to a sublight speed and it happened all over again. 2 upchucks for the price of 1. Leo hadn't gotten that feeling, the sinking, sickening stomachache drop, the dizzying head spin, which meant the ship was still using its conventional thrusters, saving its Fantasium, which meant that he couldn't be that far from the Beagle and his brother. When I see him again, Leo thought to himself, I'm going to let him have it. When, he told himself, when? We'll find each other. Leo stopped pounding uselessly on the hatch door and began searching for a keypad or an emergency release in the darkness, something that would unlock it. Though once he felt the ship moving, he realized that opening the hatch to the outside would be the absolute worst thing he could do. No sense blowing yourself out of the airlock. He just wanted to know that there was a way out, that he wouldn't be stuck in here forever. At least the cargo holds were hooked up in the ship's life support systems, gravity and oxygen. At least he could breathe. Until he couldn't, until the space around him constricted even further, the darkness wrapping its fingers around his neck, leaning against his chest. Leo's breaths grew shallower, more hurried, until he couldn't swallow, until his throat felt like it was the size of a pinhole. You are alone, the darkness said. You are alone and you are trapped and there is no way out of it. Leo choked, gasped. He fumbled for his inhaler in the darkness, dropped it, scrambled down on his knees, banging his head against the compartment's metal side, finding his medicine, flipping the cap, wrapping his lips around it, taking a breath. The instant chemical rush, like being on the highway and opening the car window to stick your head out. He took a second deep breath, then chuckled, then curled into a tight ball on the floor of the compartment, barely fitting between the containers, head pressed back against the steel siding. He conjured his father's words, the reassurances he gave whenever Leo had a panic attack. Deep breaths, Leo. In, out. Imagine your chest filling like a hot air balloon, lifting high into the clouds. Nothing else around, just clouds and blue sky. Ever since he was little, it was the same image. Always the balloon, always the clouds. Leo felt the rattle in his chest calm, the grip around his throat ease. Yes, he could breathe. Just breathe. But he could still barely see. Blinking at the thin strip of dull white light by his feet, barely enough to illuminate his boots, he felt like he was out there already in the vacuum of space, cold and dark. He rubbed his arms and his right hand stopped at his wrist, at his watch, the gift from his parents. In the meager glow of the light strip, Leo turned the dial to 12, the hologram he played the most, and pressed the button. Suddenly, the space before him was filled with the soft glimmer of the projection. It was the only hollow that wasn't of Leo, the one he'd kept in his watch's memory from the very first year he got it. It was a recording of his mother.